Welcome back to another video on the ServiceNow Service Portal. This is Chris Fulton, Advisory Consultant with ServiceNow, and this session we're going to talk about how to create a Service Portal page from scratch that mimics this page we see here, which is My Assets. So in asset management, one of the things that we do in ServiceNow is we like to provide complete visibility, not only internally, but also externally to the end user so they can see what assets they have assigned to them, when their refresh dates are, maybe software entitlements and subscriptions and so forth. This is available within the Fulfiller interface, which is what you see on your screen now. However, with the advent of the service portal that came out in Helsinki, it'd be nice to be able to have that exposed there. So we're going to walk through this. It's a rather brief exercise, but I'll show you how to create that. So the first thing we're going to do is, you notice I'm logged in as a user that has rights, the system administrator, so I have the ability to go in and create some service portal pages. I'll go into the service portal, and I'm going to go to service portal configuration. Now from this configuration page, if you've seen some of the other videos, you know that there's several things you can do here, and as I mentioned in one video, we'll spend most of our time, and as you will too, in the designer. So as we come into the designer, this is where we can go in and edit existing pages or create new pages. And I'm going to select add a new page. I'm going to call it My Assets. And you notice it automatically gives it a page ID. We'll refer to that in the URL. You'll see that as we navigate to that page in a little bit. I'll go ahead and submit that, and it creates a new page for us. So now we have a blank canvas. This is a start of a new page that can be accessed within our service portal. The service portal that this is pointing to is my service portal. There are several service portals that I have in my instance. You may have more or less depending on what you're doing, but I'm going to do this against the service portal. And this is the page here, which is called My Assets that I just created. You notice I already have a container up here. I'm going to go ahead and drag a second container here. Now I'm going to start to design this. In the top container, I want a full width display box. So that's 12 columns across. And in the bottom one, I'm going to have 6 and 6. So the screen will be split into 2 equal parts. At the top, we're going to go ahead and start with just an HTML widget. And the purpose of this is just to give some context to the page that we're going to be displaying. You can have whatever text or graphics or colors that you want in here. I'm going to just go in and edit this and add some detail just so we know what it is that we're doing within this section. We want the user to have some information about what it is that they're looking at. In this case, they're looking at My Assets. It contains some details about their assets, and if it's inaccurate, we may want them to contact IT. Of course, you could have links in here that open up an incident if they see something incorrect. All right, so now we have the basic instructions. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to add another widget. And this is a data table form instance widget. And you notice it says no bread after it. This is one I've slightly modified because the default one out of the box has a breadcrumb that shows the filter that was applied to the table. And I just simply wanted to remove that. I may make another video to show how to do that. It's a very, very quick, simple exercise to copy the widget and remove that, or actually modify a value from true to false. But that's the widget we're going to use. If you don't, obviously you won't have that. So go ahead and use data table from instance and everything will work exactly as I show it here. Once I've dropped that widget onto the form, I can go ahead and click on the pencil. This brings us into the edit mode for all the variables against that specific instance of this widget. There's lots of data points here that I could fill in, but for purposes of this demo, we're just going to fill in what's required to get the results, and I'll allow you to go in and explore after the fact and play around with some of the variables within here. So the first thing is we need to define the table, and we're going to point it to the hardware table, which is ALM_hardware. The next thing we need to do is, since this is an individual that is going to be going in and looking at this hardware, we want to limit the query that comes back based on who the user is that's logged in. And so we can use what's called an encoded query, and that here will say if the assigned to field equals the current user. So that JavaScript :gs.getUserID will return the user ID of the person who's logged in, and we'll match that against the assigned to field. The next thing is we need the display field. So this will be the active field that we can link from. In this case, we're going to use the asset tag. And then what additional fields do we want to see within this display? I want display name. I also want the model category, and I want to show the cost. Now you can choose whatever fields you want here based on your requirements. I'm trying to mimic the portal page, or excuse me, the My Assets page that we just looked at in the instance a moment ago. Go ahead and click Save on this. And now I have a quick view of assets that are my assets. I'm logged in as System Administrator, and these are assets that are assigned to me. So that's the first part of this. So we've gone ahead and created a couple of widgets. We have our title widget. We've got our widget that lists all the current assets for this individual. The next thing that we saw in that view, and let's just switch over to that just to see what we're going for, is I want to have this refresh dates show up on that portal as well. And then we're going to do the software entitlement. So these will be the next two widgets, and that's why I split the screen half and half. So if we go to this bottom portion, here's our two sections. And this first one on the left is going to be the refresh dates. So I'm going to grab the same widget. This creates a new instance of the widget in this block. When I click on the pencil, I'm going back into edit mode, and we're going to do basically the same thing. I'm going to come down, I'm going to specify the table. In this case, it's the same table, which is the hardware ALM hardware table. All right, so here's our query. And the query basically says if the assigned to is the current user and the retirement date is not empty, then we're going to display those records. So if there are asset records that do not have a retirement date in there, I choose not to display those in here. You may change that in your instance. We're going to do the same thing here, which is what is the display field, and I'm going to have it be the asset tag. And then I'm going to have two additional fields. I want the display name, and I want the scheduled retirement date. Now that that's complete, I'll go ahead and save this. Once it saves, we'll get the information up on the screen, and we'll see that now I have one asset that is scheduled for retirement on 3/13/2019. So we've got two of our widgets done, just one more to go. So we're going to grab this data table from instance again, going to paste that in there, and we're going to edit this. Now this one's very similar with just pointing to a different table. In this case, the table that we're going to look at is the license entitlement table. I'm going to select that. I'm going to grab a query here that I've already created for the particular user that I want. And if you want more information on these queries, look up encoded queries in the wiki. So in this case, this query simply says the assigned to is the current user, or the allocated to user is the current user. So assigned to or allocated to. In this case, we're going to choose the display name as the display name, and the other field will be licensed by. We go down and save this. And now we've got our complete form that I wanted to fill out. So if we go back and look at our master, here's the assets that are assigned to me, refresh dates, software entitlements. Now I haven't done the rest of these, the assets by model, the subscriptions, or my asset request. I'll leave that to you to do as homework and see if you're able to get that. If you have questions, just leave it in the comments, and I'll see if I can help. Just as one last piece here, we'll go ahead and bring up the actual page and show that it works within the service portal. So the system administrator can see their assets and license entitlements. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, have a great day.